Hi, welcome to another video.
So today we are diving into something that's been making some serious waves in the AI community, and honestly, I have been pretty excited to test this out myself. DeepSeek just dropped their V3.1 Terminus model, and let me tell you, this is not just another incremental update. There is actually some really interesting stuff happening here that I think you are gonna want to know about. Alright, so before we jump into the technical stuff, let me give you the quick backstory. You know how DeepSeek has been on this incredible run lately. They have been consistently putting out models that punch way above their weight class, especially when you look at price point. Terminus is their latest attempt to address some of the pain points that users have been complaining about with the previous version. Now here is what really interesting about this release. DeepSeek did not go for the flashy marketing approach where they claim everything is revolutionary. Instead, they were pretty honest and said, we are keeping everything that was working well and we are fixing the stuff that was annoying people. And honestly, I respect that approach because it shows they are actually listening to the users' feedback. So what exactly did they fix? Well, the biggest issue people were having was this weird language mixing problem. You know how sometimes you would be chatting with the model in English and then suddenly it would throw in some Chinese characters or just produce these random weird symbols. And that was driving people crazy. And apparently DeepSeek heard about it loud and very clearly. They have basically solved that issue with Terminus, which is a huge for anyone doing serious work with the model. But there is more than that. The agent capabilities have gotten a major boost too. Now I know agent stuff can sound a bit abstract, so let me break it down in simple terms. Think of agent as a model's ability to actually do things for you, not just chat, like can it browse the web effectively? Can it write code that actually works, or can it use tool properly? That kind of stuff, and from what I am seeing in the benchmark, Terminus is significantly better at all of this. The numbers are actually pretty impressive. In something called browser competence, which basically tests how well the model can navigate and interact with web browser, Terminus jumped from 30 to 38 points. That might not sound like a lot, but in the AI world, that's actually a pretty substantial improvement. And in simple tool use tasks, it went from 93 to 97, which is getting close to perfect territory. Now let me show you something interesting. I'm gonna fire up the DeepSeek chat interface and you will notice right away that they have updated the whole look and the feel of the platform. Gone is that solid background they used to have. Now it's got this more modern, glowing effect around the text box and honestly, it just feels more polished. Speaking of thinking mode, this is where things get really cool. DeepSeek Terminus has these two different operating modes. These are the regular chat mode for quick back and forth conversation, and then there is this thinking mode where the model literally thinks through the problem step by step before responding. It's like having a conversation with someone who actually pauses to consider what they are saying instead of just blurting out the first thing that comes to mind. I'm gonna test this out with a practical example. Let's say I'm a freelancing graphic designer and want to make a portfolio website for me. Watch what happens when I ask Terminus to help me with this. First, I will try it in regular mode, then we will see how the thinking mode handles it differently. Alright, so I'm typing in my prompt now and you can see the regular mode give me a pretty standard response. It's good, but it's the kind of answer you might expect from any decent AI model. Now let me switch to the thinking mode and ask the same question. Notice how it says it's thinking for a few seconds. This is not just for show, the model is actually working through the problem more systematically. And look at this response. It's not just giving me generic advice, it's actually solid and error-free code. Now let's talk about pricing, because this is where DeepSeek continues to blow my mind. We are looking at 27 cents per million input token and $1 per million output tokens. To put that in perspective, that's roughly 68 times cheaper than some of the premium models from other companies. And here is the kicker, the performance gap is nowhere near 68 times worse. In many cases, it's competitive with models that cost significantly more. The context window is pretty solid too. You get up to 128,000 tokens, which is basically book length conversation. The maxed output is around 65,000 tokens, which should be more than enough for most use cases. Sure, it's not the biggest context window out there, but for most practical applications, it's plenty. Let me show you another test I like to run. I'm gonna ask Terminus to help me build a simple task management web app. This will test both its coding abilities and how well it can break down complex projects into manageable steps. Okay, so I'm going to create a task management app with categories on the left side and a clean modern design. Let's see what it comes up with. And here we go, it's starting to generate the code. One thing I noticed right away is that the code structure looks really clean and well organized. It's using modern JavaScript, proper HTML semantics, and the CSS is actually pretty thoughtful designed. Let me run this code and see what we get. And there it is, a fully functional task management app. I can add new tasks, mark them as complete. That's actually really impressive for a first attempt. The design is clean, the functionality works as expected, and the code quality is also solid. Now I want to test something that's been improved in Terminus, which is a tool integration. Let me ask it to help me research and compare 3 different project management methodologies. This requires it to research for information, analyze different approaches, and present a coherent comparison. What's interesting here is that Terminus does not give me a generic textbook definition. It's actually providing practical insights about when to use each methodology, the pros and cons of each approach, and real-world examples. This is exactly the kind of agent-like behavior that the benchmark were measuring, and I can see why the score improved so much. Alright, so let's talk about some of this limitation because no model is perfect. The reasoning mode, while impressive, can be a bit slow sometimes. If you are looking for quick answer to simple questions, you might find yourself waiting longer than necessary. It's kind of like asking someone to write a doctoral thesis when you just wanted to know what time it is. Also, while the language mixing issue has been largely solved, I still occasionally see some inconsistencies in very long conversation. It's much better than before, but it's not completely perfect yet. And depending on what you are doing, the context window, while decent, might feel limiting compared to some of the newer models that offer much larger windows. But here is what really impressed me about this release. DeepSeek could have just focused on making their model bigger and more expensive like everyone else seemed to be doing. Instead, they focused on making it more reliable, more consistent, and better at practical tasks. That's the kind of approach that actually helps users get real work done. The fact that they are calling it Terminus is interesting too. I'm not entirely sure what that signifies, but it suggests this might be a more finalized version of their V3.1 architecture before they move on to something completely different. It's possible they are planning to launch some kind of dedicated coding agent or specialized tool based on this foundation. If you want to try Terminus yourself, there are several ways to get started. The easiest is probably through the official DeepSeek chat interface, which is free and gives you access to both the regular and thinking modes. If you prefer API access, they support that too, and the pricing is the same across the board. There are also third-party platforms like OpenRouter that offer access if you prefer those interfaces. For the developer who want to integrate this into their own application, the API documentation looks pretty comprehensive and they have maintained compatibility with the previous version, so existing integration should continue working without modifications. One thing I have noticed in my testing is that Terminus seems particularly strong at tasks that require sustained attention and multi-step reasoning. Things like code debugging, research projects, creative writing, and strategic planning all seems to benefit from the improvements. It's less revolutionary for simple question and answer scenarios, but that's okay because the previous version was already pretty good at those. Looking ahead, I'm curious to see how DeepSeek continues to evolve their approach. The AI space is moving incredibly fast and the computation is also increasing. But what I like about DeepSeek is that they seem to be focused on practical improvement rather than just chasing benchmark scores. They are building tools that people actually want to use for real work. The pricing strategy is also really smart. By keeping costs low while improving quality, they are making advanced AI accessible to individuals and small businesses who might not be able to afford the premium options. The improvement in agent capabilities alone make it worth checking it out. Alright, so that's it from the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.